Miles Boykin both getting moved to the IR. So once again, Lamar will be asked to do a lot with a little. Hey, Stink, Lamar Jackson's weapons this season are blank.
Irrelevant. Lamar Jackson is such a dynamic player. He is such a dynamic player, and this offense is so incredibly hard to prepare for. And when you think about all the zone read stuff, all the option stuff that they run, you simply can't, as a defense, prepare for that for the week. You can't get a good look at it, and you can't do it live in practice in today's game. So you have to basically learn on the fly. When you learn on the fly in the first and second quarter on how you want to get your run fits, who wants to play force, who's got the fullback, who's got the tailback, who's got the pitch, who's got the quarterback, and you've got to go through that. By the time you kind of get a plan together and have a feel for it, you're already down by 14 points. So I just don't think they're relevant. I think this offense is so unique, it is so hard to prepare for. And Lamar is such a dynamic player that you can put anybody out there. He's going to get one-on-one matchups because you're hell-bent for election to stop the run. I just don't think they matter.
Yeah, I think they might, though, matter, Stink, to Lamar's ability to secure the bag and get the contract extension that quietly Lamar and Baker still waiting on those. Season starts a week from yesterday, and we thought maybe all three of those quarterbacks were going to get their contract extensions. Only Josh Allen has gotten his. But I do think it's somewhat of the status quo. The Ravens have not been able to get this right since Lamar's been there. And so when right now your healthy guy is Sammy Watkins, that's a concern. Sammy Watkins was awesome for the Chiefs when he was available. He was awesome for the Bills when he was available. Problem is, he is rarely available. Boykin's on the IR. Bateman, who was supposed to be the guy who really put them to another level as a first-round pick, that is receiver's a tough position to make an impact on as a rookie. It's almost impossible if you miss essentially all of training camp and now the first few weeks, 6 weeks of the season, as he's going to. And so then you're leaning on Hollywood Brown, who he has had trouble of his own staying healthy. Sometimes Wild's a position group is just snake bit with injuries. And for the Ravens, this was where they thought they were going to upgrade this year. So it looks like they're going to be a lot like the Ravens wide receiver room last year, which was, Willie Snead and trying to patch it together, which wasn't great for Lamar's development.
Yeah, so that's why I said tight end centric. Mark Andrews led the team in yards per game. So did, guess who else did? So did Kittle. So did Kelsey. Problem is, those guys had, 75, almost 100 yards per game. Mark Andrews had 50. But Stink, I want to ask you a question. The narrative, or there was a storyline like, people have figured out Lamar. This is going to be the year, Lamar gets figured out. That seems to be something that's circulating around the media. But we've had several players on, you being the latest one, who just don't buy that at all. What do you think the disconnect is between the media saying, they're going to figure out Lamar, and former players saying, no, it's too hard, it's impossible?
Yeah, well, the disconnect is that, you look at Lamar and you look at the skill set and the way he runs the football and the way the Ravens run the football, and you're like, okay, you'll figure him out if he diminishes as an athlete. Because right now, he is the freak show of all freak show athletes. When he makes defensive backs in the NFL look silly by the way he runs around them, like, are you going to figure out athleticism? Are you going to figure out his ability to move? I mean, that until that diminishes, until that wanes, he is what he is. And the way they run their offense, they do such a great job because Lamar, in many instances, becomes another running back out back there. The way they run it, if you split the field in half, and I do this all the time, I'll just draw a line down the middle of the football field. They'll pull guys in quick motions from one side to the other side, and then all of a sudden you split it in half and you got 5 guys on one side and 5 guys on the other side, and all of a sudden you have 7 blockers with Lamar carrying the ball on that half of the football field. So you're getting a 5-on-7 matchup against the defense. You figure that out. Well, we got 2 extra blockers to your number of defenders. You're not figuring that out. And because you pack so many people in there, you're getting one-on-ones on the outside to your tight ends, to your running backs, or to your wide receivers, and you're getting those seam shots down the middle where you've got one-on-one coverage, and that's where Lamar is dangerous in the passing game. So are you going to figure it out? No, you're not going to figure that out because nobody else does it.
So, Stink, couple things, including a question. First one is, you're making me nostalgic for doing radio because nothing screams a radio studio like a broken chair off in the background that one of your goofball co-hosts tried to stand on and broke. Every radio studio I've ever worked in is just littered with broken chairs, random things. I'm sweating. I want to be in that studio with you. So,
one other thing is, and I didn't even realize this, the Nolan Arenado jersey that has Benedict Arnold.
Yeah, Benedict Arnold. Yeah, I knew it. I knew Arenado. Exactly. That's the other thing. It's like you leave the Rockies, Benedict Arnold hanging in the studio. But let me ask you a quick question, though, about what you're saying about guys not being able to figure it out. So, because I think the layman would say, you know what teams should do? Whatever Lamar's playoff opponents have done. That's what they should do because it seems like in the playoffs, they've had success against him. If those playoff teams aren't figuring it out, is that more that Lamar has just played well beneath his capabilities in the postseason? Or is it that in the postseason he's seeing different fits because the worst games of his career, 3 of the 5 worst games of his career have been his 3 playoff losses?
Right. Well, one, he's playing better football teams in the playoffs. And then I think the other big thing about Baltimore and the way they're structured, because I think they play the best complementary football in the National Football League. The way they run the ball, the way they control the clock, what ends up happening is they get the ball, they cram it down your throat for 8 minutes because you're not used to the fits. You haven't seen, the real live action. You haven't seen Lamar in the flesh. It's like Randy Moss. People used to watch film on Randy Moss and go, I think I can run with him. And then they get on the field with him and he would glide by them like it's effortless. And they're like, no, on second thought, I can't run with him. Nobody can run with him, right? And so until you see Lamar in real life, you don't realize the athleticism and the speed. You convince yourself watching film that you guys can corral him, but you can't.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is you get behind in those games when they get the ball first and you start counting possessions and you feel like, shoot, a normal game has 13 possessions. We're going to get 8. We got to score every time. In the playoffs, what ends up happening is the other team scores, they get a shutdown, whatever the case may be, and they get ahead. And the Baltimore Ravens aren't really built to play from behind. Lamar has very few wins coming from behind. If you get down by 10 points, they're not a efficient passing team unless they're running the snot out of the ball. And that's what has happened to them in the playoffs where they've been beaten. They get an offense that puts together, a 4-play like the Chiefs, a 4-5 play drive that takes a minute and 30 seconds and hangs 7 on you. And the next thing you know, you're starting the opposite. You're starting to count possession going, man, we can't afford to run the ball every single down because we're going to run out of time. And they're not built they're not, and that's why they're trying to bolster the receiver position. That's why they're trying to have him become a better passer. So those are the things that happen to them come playoff time.
Mark Schlereth, I know you got to go do some radio. We thank you. Love having you.
Always a pleasure.
Have a great rest of the
Thanks,
weekend.
Guys.
We stay in the AFC North. Head to Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski says Baker has grown. Not physically, of course. I think that is set. But are people actually sleeping on Baker this season? That's next. First things first.